Our passage today is from Luke, the 14th chapter, beginning in the 25th verse to the 35th verse. We know that Jesus is continuing his journey to Jerusalem, and he's continuing to drive his point home about what it's like for us to be his disciple. He tells a few parables in this passage, but he is teaching here that he must have first place in our lives. He even uses intentionally provocative language as he tells us that we need to make him a priority in our life over anything else. And he even wants us to make him a priority in our life over anyone else. And he tells us that following him will involve carrying a cross. We know that for Jesus, that's a literal cross that he carries. For most of us, it's probably metaphorical. There's a few ways of understanding this idea that we may have to carry a cross as a disciple. I know a lot of times we joke about something that's hard or difficult, or sometimes something that's really good. We'll jokingly say, well, we all have our cross to bear. But what Jesus is talking about is being willing to do something that we may not want to do, to go somewhere we may not want to go. He's saying that we may be called on to make sacrifices in our life for him as we put him first, above anything, above anyone else. Are we really ready to do that? Jesus also tells here a couple of parables that remind us what following Jesus may mean in our life. And then his final warning reminds us that a disciple who is not willing to make the tough choices, not willing to persevere, not willing to make the sacrifices, not willing to put Jesus first when things get tough, well, that disciple is like salt that's no longer salty, basically useless. I doubt any of us want to be known as a disciple that's basically useless. I've shared before that one of my favorite stories about the call of discipleship is the story of Andrew Young and his daughter. Andrew Young was a congressman, an ambassador to the United Nations, and the mayor of Atlanta, and he was also a pastor. And one day, Andrew Young's daughter came home from college and said, "Daddy, I heard a missionary talking about the ministry that he's doing in Uganda, and so I want to go and spend a year in Uganda with him." And Andrew Young said, "Now come on, there's so much that you can do here. There's so much work you can do here. Why would you ever need to leave Atlanta to go and be in ministry?" And she said, "But Daddy, I feel called to go to Uganda." He said, "But it's dangerous there. You could get killed there." And she said, "Daddy, I could get killed anytime. I could get killed anywhere. But I really believe that God is calling me to go to Uganda and spend a year in mission." Andrew Young thought about this and prayed about this, and he finally gave her his blessing to go. He said, "When my daughter walked onto that airplane, I realized that in baptizing her, in raising her, in taking her to church, and in sending her to participate in youth events and camps and retreats, what I wanted most for her was that she would become a respectable Christian. But what I wasn't prepared for her, he said, what I wasn't prepared was for her to become a real one, a real disciple." While it's not easy all the time to follow Jesus, we must remember all that Jesus has done for us. He offers us salvation free of charge. In love, he has given his own life so that we might be forgiven and reconciled to God. In love, he tells us when we commit our lives to him, he tells us what discipleship will involve. And so today, from these parables, these teachings of Jesus, we know a little bit more about what it means to be a disciple. But are you reluctant to be a real one? What advice about the cost of discipleship would you give to someone who wants to be a Christian? How would you share how discipleship has changed you, has made you the person that you are? Today, when you pray, talk to God about the cost of discipleship. Do you only follow Jesus when it's easy? Or do you follow Jesus regardless?